My name is Harper Wren. I'm 33 and I used to think generosity made a home warmer. That was before my guest room became someone else's master suite, and I was left sleeping next to a washing machine. It started with a favor. Just a few weeks, they said. Family helping family. They brought suitcases, wine fridges, and migraines triggered by my bathroom tiles. I gave them space. They took the rest. At first, it was little things: a mug, a pantry shelf, a quiet morning. Then it was my office, my desk, my dignity. They moved in like a storm dressed as gratitude. And every time I asked for the smallest boundary, I was told I was the problem. Too private, too controlling, not vibing. But I wasn't losing control. I was watching. I was learning. And I was remembering who built this house, who signed the first check, who laid the first tile, who paid the mortgage while others played victim. They didn't just take over my space. They tried to rewrite my story. But here's what they forgot. I kept the receipts, and I write better than they lie. Before I show you how I took back my home, my name, and everything they tried to erase, tell me, have you ever let someone in and watched them slowly push you out of your own life? If this story feels familiar, if you've ever been the quiet one made to feel like a stranger in your own home, like, share, and subscribe. Because survival isn't always loud. Sometimes it's silent, strategic, and surgical. And sometimes it's war. The first night Noah and Megan arrived, they brought 2 oversized suitcases, a dog bed, and a wine fridge. Megan said it was just a few essentials. I smiled and helped carry them in, still naive enough to think this was temporary. Maybe a week or 2 at most. I should have known better when she asked if the guest room had blackout curtains and if I could maybe tone down the colors in the bathroom because they triggered her migraines. Noah didn't say much. He rarely did. Just dropped his bag and went straight to the fridge. I watched him help himself to the coconut water I'd been saving and then use my favorite mug without asking. It started small, like that. A mug, a bathroom shelf, my spare towels, then the linen closet. I'd renovated this house with my own hands after Grandma passed. I never thought I'd be shoved out of it. By my own blood. By day 4, Megan had moved her makeup station into my office. The white oak desk I built was covered in cosmetics, curling irons, and open laptop cases. She ran Zoom calls from my chair, using my ring light. When I politely asked if I could squeeze in to work on a proposal, she smiled and said, "You're always in here. Don't you ever socialize?" That night, I worked on the kitchen counter. Noah needed the Wi-Fi router unplugged to test their gaming console. I lost 3 hours of progress on a client deck. When I told him I couldn't get work done like this, he shrugged and said, "Well, maybe work at a Starbucks?" I used to love mornings. Sunlight pouring into the kitchen, jazz playing from the Bluetooth speaker, hot coffee in a real mug. Now I tiptoed around, hoping not to wake Megan, who needed her sleep after a long night of watching reality TV. My pantry was crammed with food I didn't recognize. There were juice cleanses and organic snacks labeled "Do Not Touch M." Eventually, I moved my workspace into the garage. The concrete floor smelled like oil and old paint. It was either that or the deck, where mosquitoes waged full-blown war after sunset. Then came the shower schedules. Yes, schedules. Megan posted a color-coded chart on the fridge. I was allotted one 20-minute slot per day between her skincare routine and Noah's gym cooldown. The absurdity of it made me laugh at first. Then I cried. I tried calling Uncle Caleb to vent. He listened quietly and then reminded me, "Family's complicated, Harper. Be patient. They're going through a lot." He always had a way of making me feel like I was the difficult one, even when I was the one paying the mortgage. Saturday came. Megan threw a birthday party for her college friend. Pink balloons, Prosecco pyramids, catered sushi. None of which I was told about until I walked into the kitchen and saw 2 women I'd never met pouring drinks. "Did you forget to tell me we were hosting something?" I asked, stunned. Megan rolled her eyes. It's just a few people. Anyway, you weren't exactly invited. I blinked. This is my house. She laughed. Exactly why it'd be weird. I mean, it's not personal. But your vibe, it's kind of off. If you show up, it'll ruin the vibe. Noah said nothing. He just kept scrolling on his phone. I closed the laundry room door and sat on the cold tile floor, laptop on my knees. Then I start writing plans to leave. Not the house, but the role they've assigned me. They didn't just invade my space. They rewrote the lease of reality. Megan made pancakes that morning. Not for me. Just for herself, Noah, and Caleb, who'd shown up with a six-pack and his usual too-loud laugh. I came downstairs to the smell of maple syrup and the sound of my own Spotify playlist blaring from a speaker I didn't remember owning anymore. Morning, I mumbled. Caleb waved his fork. You missed breakfast, Harper. Megan's pancakes are becoming legendary. She used my almond milk, I said, noticing the empty carton. No one replied. Yesterday, Noah looked me straight in the eye and said, I have a house because my parents didn't make me go to school far away like you. As if my independence was an offense. As if I owed him for choosing my own path. I'd always assumed I was the eccentric sibling. Quiet, focused, career-driven. I didn't know that to them. That made me selfish. That afternoon, the Wi-Fi died during a client call. A big one. New retainer potential. I sprinted to the router in the garage. Gone. Just gone. A thick orange extension cord ran out the side door to the guest room. I knocked. Megan opened it wearing headphones and a green face mask. I need the router, I said, trying to sound calm. I'm on a live stream, she snapped. Can you wait an hour? You unplugged my work setup for your stream? She blinked. Chill. We needed better bandwidth. I walked back to my laptop, but it was pointless. The call was already over. Later, while wiping down the counter, I heard Caleb's voice from the dining room. We'll get the house legalized soon. She's not fighting it, so... I froze. The word echoed in my ears. Legalized. That night at dinner, they didn't ask me to join, but I hovered near the kitchen, pretending to wash dishes while listening. Megan held her wine glass like she was at a TED Talk. Honestly, Harper is being petty for keeping things private. It's not like she's even using the space well. I mean, she works in a garage. Noah chuckled. She always was weird about control. Control? I stepped out from behind the wall. This is my house. Megan sipped her drink. And we're just trying to make it livable. For everyone. It wasn't even subtle anymore. They were rewriting the narrative, one gaslit dinner at a time. While I sat fuming in the laundry room, a knock came at the back door. Marcus, the handyman who'd been fixing a leaky pipe in the bathroom, stood holding a small USB drive. I didn't mean to listen, he said, voice low. But I have something you should see. I hesitated, then took it. Back in the laundry room, I plugged it in. A grainy video played. Marcus's backup camera footage. Caleb was standing outside with someone I didn't recognize. His voice was clear, cruel. She doesn't know the financial guarantee is still in effect. It's all in her name. But legally, I can push for control if she defaults. It just takes the right pressure. My hands trembled, but my face broke into a smile. I stare at the USB, and for the first time in weeks, I laugh. But this time, it's not a stoic kind of laugh. They thought they'd buried me under contracts. I built an empire from the dirt. For 3 days, I vanished. I left no notes, no explanations. Just turned off my location and packed a suitcase small enough to avoid questions. Caleb was too absorbed in his property games to notice. Megan assumed I'd finally broken. She even posted a story from my living room, captioned, "Some people just can't handle family, but healing starts with distance." Let her think what she wants. I stood that morning outside a tall glass building in downtown Chicago, the sunlight cutting across the steel edges like a scalpel. Inside, Sabrina Lynn's office hadn't changed much. Still sparse, still efficient, still smelling faintly of bergamot and cold ambition. She rose when I walked in. "Harper," she said, arms crossing. "Didn't expect to see you without a headline attached?" I smiled. "Let's fix that." Sabrina had once been my analyst, back when I still gave PowerPoint presentations to rooms full of men who thought empathy was a weakness. Now she ran Horizon Fresh, a fast-growing supply chain platform that had already disrupted 3 states. I'd kept tabs on her from afar. She'd kept quiet about how much she owed me. "Wren Logistics has hollowed itself out," I began. "They've alienated core clients. They're bleeding drivers. And they're relying on outdated routing software that I helped write." "You're pitching a takeover," she cut in. "Why now?" "Because they're vulnerable. And I'm done waiting." She narrowed her eyes, calculating. "Why should I help you sync them?" I slid 2 documents across her desk. Photocopies from Marcus, pulled from the digital trail Megan and Caleb never thought to erase. One was a fake loan agreement. The other? A falsified operations contract signed on behalf of a vendor that didn't exist. Sabrina whistled low. Enough to rattle a board meeting. "That's the appetizer," I said. "The 2021 financial guarantee is still binding. If Wren loses its contract with you, the penalties revert to Caleb personally. He'll have no choice but to forfeit the majority vote." "And who gets it?" she asked. "I do. I'll become CEO." A long pause. Finally, Sabrina grinned. "You'll need something official. My board doesn't move on promises." I figured. I handed her a draft letter of intent, already formatted to Horizon's standards. All that was missing was her signature, and a single clause of her own, which she added with casual precision. Condition: Harper takes over as CEO. I don't work with liars, only the ones who've been lied to. We shook on it. That night, I walked home through side streets, hoodie up, bag light. My hands trembled. Not with fear, but adrenaline. The pieces were aligning. All I had to do was wait. As I opened the front door, the sound of ice clinking in glasses filled the hall. Megan was in the kitchen, ring light shining like a halo behind her as she stirred a pink cocktail on livestream. Her followers gushed in the comments. "Living your best life, queen." She glanced up, frozen. "Harper? What are you still doing here?" I smiled. "Waiting for the paperwork." Caleb always locked the boardroom doors before a vote. This time, I opened them. The walnut double doors loomed ahead of me, polished and heavy as ever, but I didn't pause. I pushed them open without knocking, stepping into the room that once echoed with my silence. Every seat was filled except mine. Caleb sat at the head, suit crisp, chin tilted upward like a man already accepting applause. He hadn't seen me yet. He was mid-sentence, arms stretched, pacing as he spoke to the board like a pastor in full sermon. "We must restore this company," he declared. "And to do so, we have to let go of the burdens that hold us back. Dead weight, emotional leadership, nostalgia for obsolete policies." I walked to the center of the room. He saw me then. His lips parted just barely. "You weren't invited." "Neither was insolvency," I said. "Yet here we are." The room stiffened. Eyes flicked between us. Caleb gestured toward the exit. "This is an executive vote." "Exactly." I cut in, placing a manila folder on the table. Clause 3.7 of the 2021 Financial Guarantee Agreement. It states that any executive who fails to deliver profits for 6 consecutive quarters is subject to managerial review, including but not limited to forced reorganization, pending board vote. "You're misinterpreting legal language," he barked. "Am I?" I slid the folder across the polished table. Page 7, highlighted. A low murmur spread as 2 of the neutral board members flipped through the contract. Caleb leaned over one of them, pointing, breathing hard through his nose. He started to say something when the door opened behind me. Sabrina Lynn stepped in, heels clicking, eyes calm as a monsoon. She wore charcoal gray, her company's logo pinned neatly on her lapel. "I've come to confirm our letter of intent," she said, holding a document in one hand. "Horizon Fresh will absorb all existing delivery contracts from Wren Logistics. Our condition remains. Harper Wren is appointed interim CEO." Caleb froze. One of his loyal board members, a man named Barry, who once said women had too much empathy for leadership, started to stand in protest. Sabrina looked at him. "Barry, your wife's yoga studio receives organic supply from us. Shall I cancel the distribution?" Barry sat back down. Then came the shift I'd been waiting for. A quiet board member named Mahoney cleared his throat. "I spoke with Ms. Lynn this morning," he said. "Her proposal makes sense. Wren needs this restructuring." Caleb turned to him. "You owe me." Mahoney's face didn't flinch. "I owe the shareholders." The vote moved quickly after that. 4 in favor, 2 abstained. Caleb never got to cast a tiebreaker. I stood as Sabrina slid the final document to me. I signed it with the same pen I'd used to apply for my first job here 12 years ago. Caleb slammed his hand on the table so hard that the water in his glass rippled. "This is betrayal." "No," I said, eyes steady. "This is an enforcement audit." Outside the boardroom, my phone buzzed. A single message from Marcus. "Good signal. I've cleared Caleb's access. Megan went live to save their image. All it did was destroy the illusion." I sat by the window, mug in hand, watching the scaffolding shift along the roofline. A contractor hoisted new panels up to the second floor. My house, my sanctuary, was being put back together. It was quiet. Peaceful. Almost peaceful enough to drown out Megan's voice echoing through the vents. "This is not just about business," she cried, blinking rapidly at her phone camera. "It's about betrayal. Harper turned her back on her family. For money. For ego." I didn't move. She'd picked the living room this time. Her stage. Ring light. Throw pillows artfully arranged. Wine glass untouched on the side table. Her voice cracked for effect, but there were no tears. Just performance. Downstairs, Caleb paced. I heard drawers slam, the click of him locking his briefcase. Again. For the 3rd time today. They didn't know what else to do, so Megan did what she always did. Turn attention into currency. "She wouldn't dare touch Wren," Megan continued. "That company was built on family, on loyalty. Touching it is like cutting your own blood." A pause. The chat exploded with hearts and broken heart emojis. And then it shifted. A TikTok account reposted an old video, grainy, time-stamped from last December. Megan calling me a freeloader on camera, laughing as I wiped down the kitchen counter alone. The caption, "Is this the sister she's crying for?" The comments were merciless. Marcus sent me a thumbs-up emoji. That's all. I knew what it meant. Minutes later, an article began circulating. "The Ghost Builder of Wren Logistics." It had screenshots, financial drafts, my notes in the margins, early emails from 2016, me negotiating vendor contracts under Caleb's name because he didn't want the IRS sniffing around. The headline hit harder than any livestream ever could. Reddit took over next. Someone linked company filings from 2015. Wren Logistics was registered under my name because Caleb had still been on a payment plan for back taxes. Suddenly, it wasn't about a family dispute. It was about fraud, about erasure, about a woman who built something with her bare hands and got shoved into a laundry room for it. And I said nothing. I didn't tweet. I didn't post. I didn't clarify anything. My silence said everything. The doorbell rang just past 9. I didn't answer. I knew who it was. Someone from the local news. Maybe the same person who left 3 voicemails last night. I let it ring. Instead, I watched Megan's follower count drop in real time. Her face, still frozen mid-plea, appeared in screenshots next to the words, "strategic misrepresentation." Then, the final blow. An investigative journalist from the Chicago Ledger published a piece linking all the data. A legal expert confirmed it. Caleb was never legally allowed to hold majority share in the first year of the company's founding. That title had always belonged to me. At 10:03 p.m., my phone buzzed with a new email. Subject: Invitation to speak from Women's Leadership Alliance Body. Harper, we'd like to invite you to speak at the Women's Business Conference this December. Your story is one of perseverance, intelligence, and vision. I smiled. No need to say anything. They collapse. ChatGPT Jannoy. Ho mon ban lam viek qua toi. I left them with empty drawers. I stepped onto the stage under soft white lights, the kind that made the world blur behind their glow. In front of me, rows of women leaned forward, notebooks open, phones ready. The Women's Entrepreneurship Conference in Boston had sold out 2 months ago. And somehow, after all of it, I was the keynote. I adjusted the mic. No paper, no teleprompter. Just the story. I used to work from a folding chair in a garage. I began, my voice steady. I had a desk once. Then I didn't. I had a title. Then I didn't. I had a family. Then, well, a ripple of quiet laughter passed through the crowd. They said I was difficult, private, too emotional. And when I wasn't those things, they said I was cold, calculating. I paused. And they were right. I told them about the room that became a closet, about shower schedules and cold tile floors, about USB drives and live streams. I didn't name names. I didn't have to. Every woman in that room had been Harper once. They took my space, I said, so I created one. My presentation slid behind me. Just 3 words in clean Helvetica: invasion, innovation. That night, the clip went viral before I even left the conference center. Someone added slow piano behind it. Someone else started a hashtag. A venture capital firm I didn't recognize sent an offer within the hour. I declined. I had other plans. The Turning Point Fund launched the following week, seeded by the first bonus check Sabrina insisted I take. Its mission was simple: to back women who were pushed out of their own companies and were ready to fight back. The first recipient? A software engineer who had been ghosted by her male co-founder right before Series A. Caleb never called again. By December 15th, he was officially forced out of all board positions. A subpoena followed. Contractual fraud, misuse of client data, breach of fiduciary duty. Wren Logistics rebranded to Wren Nexus. Sabrina and I didn't make a public statement. We didn't need to. Megan and Noah vanished from social media. Their last post was a moving out story. Noah holding a U-Haul key, Megan smiling behind sunglasses too big for her face. I heard they sold the apartment. Quietly. Probably to cover lawyer fees. As for Marcus, I brought him on as an advisor the next month. He didn't say much in meetings, but when he did, the room listened. The emails kept coming. Magazine requests, panel invites, TEDx. Forbes Women ran a piece titled "The Strategist Who Reclaimed Her Throne." The cover showed a blurry silhouette of a woman standing in front of a glass boardroom door. They didn't ask me to pose. They didn't need to. A few days later, I flew back to Chicago. The sky was iron gray, the air sharp with winter. I unlocked the front door, my front door, and walked down the hall, passing the kitchen, the stairwell, the old guest room. At the end was a room once stacked with boxes, a temporary warehouse, they'd called it. Now, it was a studio. Clean light, fresh paint. On the table, one small sign carved into brass. No entry without respect. I smiled. Some victories don't require speeches. They called it a temporary arrangement. A few weeks, just until their place was ready. I remember the way Megan smiled when she said that. Sweet but hollow, the kind of smile that masks calculation. And I, like a fool holding on to old stories, opened my door. I gave them the guest room, then my office, then the entire bandwidth of my home Wi-Fi. Somewhere between borrowed keys and stolen silence, my name disappeared from the lease of my own life. For a while, I let it happen. Maybe because I thought family meant something. Maybe because I was too exhausted to fight. Or maybe because I needed to be backed into a corner to remember how sharp I could be. But corners teach you geometry. They teach you angles. Angles of escape, of leverage, of precision. The day Megan threw a birthday party in my house and told me not to come downstairs because I'd ruined the vibe, something inside me didn't snap. It clicked. I wasn't losing a battle. I was studying the blueprint. While they threw wine-stained parties upstairs, I traced company records in the laundry room. While they called me antisocial, I mapped financial trails. While they pushed me out of the master bedroom, I walked into old conference rooms with new partners. They saw a woman without a voice. What they forgot is that silence can be strategy. And patience? Patience is not weakness. It's weaponized time. I didn't need to scream. I needed signatures. I needed clause 3.7, the guarantee Caleb forgot he'd once drafted. I needed Sabrina to look at the numbers and say, "Let's move." And when the time came, when the boardroom door swung open and Caleb's face paled, I didn't gloat. I executed. The pen in my hand didn't tremble. The deal was clean, legal, lethal in its precision. When Caleb said, "This is betrayal," I only nodded. Not out of guilt, out of clarity. He betrayed himself the moment he mistook my silence for surrender. Then came Megan's live stream. A flailing performance disguised as confession. She cried, blamed, rewrote history in front of her followers. But history is hard to control when there's footage, when timelines contradict tears, when the internet remembers things people try to bury. A TikTok resurfaced. The one where she called me a freeloader while I scrubbed my own floors. An article followed. The ghost builder of Wren Logistics. And suddenly, silence wasn't the absence of sound. It was a megaphone. I didn't grant interviews. I didn't comment. Because the louder they screamed, the clearer the truth rang. My invitation to the Women's Entrepreneurship Conference arrived shortly after. The keynote spot. A stage, a microphone. A room full of women who had all, at one point, been pushed into a metaphorical laundry room of their own. I didn't tell them everything, but I told them enough. How they took my name off documents, my voice out of rooms, my story out of the narrative, until I wrote it back in, clause by clause, ledger by ledger, contract by contract. After the speech, I started the fund. Not for revenge, for rebuilding. For others like me who thought they'd been erased, until they remembered erasure is not deletion, just displacement. And displacement can be reversed. By December, Caleb was gone. Legally removed. Wren Logistics was rebranded. Megan and Noah faded from view, selling off the apartment like exiles. And I came home. My house was mine again. Quiet, clear. And in that room they once used for storage, now stood a new desk. A better one. Built from the same wood I'd once used to renovate Grandma's floors. On it sat a small sign. No entry without respect. I didn't hang it out of bitterness. I hung it as a reminder. You don't win by becoming like them. You win by building what they said you never could. Some stories end with applause. Others end in silence so complete it echoes louder than any cheer. Justice, after all, is not always theatrical. Sometimes it's a document signed in a quiet room. A contract clause remembered. A woman returning to the space she built with her bare hands. And when injustice is met with unwavering strategy, the final verdict doesn't just punish. It rewrites history. Because no matter how many times they take the desk, the empire always remembers who laid the first brick. They said it was temporary, just until they got back on their feet. But what they really meant was, let's see how much we can take before she remembers who she is. They underestimated silence. They mistook stillness for surrender. But what they didn't know was that every night I spent on a laundry room floor, I wasn't losing. I was watching, listening, documenting. They saw a woman displaced. What they missed was the strategist rebuilding in the shadows. Because the moment I stopped explaining myself, I started planning. The moment they laughed at my boundaries, I studied their weaknesses. And the moment they thought I had nothing left, I took everything back. Not with rage, not with noise, but with proof, with signatures, with Clause 3.7. They weaponized entitlement. I answered with precision. They fed on image. I responded with facts. And when the final vote was cast, I didn't have to say a word. The silence spoke for me. To anyone watching this who's been pushed out of your own story, whether by family, colleagues, or people who smiled while stealing your place, you don't have to scream to be powerful. You don't have to burn the house down to reclaim it. You just have to remember that truth, when armed with patience, becomes unstoppable. Let them mock you. Let them post. Let them spin the story. Because the more they perform, the more transparent they become. And when the moment comes, when the documents surface, when the lights shift, when their narrative collapses under the weight of reality, all you'll have to do is sign. Thank you for listening, for staying with me through this story, for believing that being erased doesn't mean being gone, and for understanding that some of us weren't built to be loud. We were built to be unmovable. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been pushed out, pushed down, or pushed aside by the very people who should have stood beside you, please, like, subscribe, and share this with someone who might be stuck in their own metaphorical laundry room. They may not know yet, but they're not alone. Because survival isn't weakness. Silence isn't defeat. And reclaiming your space, quietly, legally, brilliantly, isn't revenge. It's justice with a blueprint. I'm Harper Wren. I didn't raise my voice. I raised the stakes. And in the end, that was more than enough.